I am making the prettiest quilt right now. I love this. All those florals, they're beautiful. But you know what I love best? It's an on-point quilt. And even better, this is super easy. How is that possible? I'm going to tell you how. I'm Louise from Inspired Quilting by Louise, and I am going to show you the simplest on-point quilting hack ever. It just goes together so easily. You are going to love to learn this technique. You'll be making on points more than you can imagine, and there's no math, and there's no complicated figuring out what size your triangles need to be. Oh, we've got the perfect solution for you here. So let's get started. I want to show this to you. Here is a beautiful pre-cut quilt kit from the Fabric Hut. I like this. That's a pretty color. And I like the florals. You know I love florals. They are a favorite. And this is called Morning Glory. And let's see. I think we just need to open this and see what we have. Lots of floral prints, and I see lots of different colors. Let's just take a quick look at the pattern, at what we have here. And I like the look of that. I like the lattice work there. This will be fun to see how this quilt goes together. And all their patterns, when you buy a kit, come in multiple sizes. So while the kit that you purchase is usually for maybe a lap size or a large lap, the pattern that you receive, you can make multiples of in varying sizes. So all those dimensions and yardage requirements are included. And, oh, here we go. So this is the throw, 63 by 77, which is a very good size quilt. And this was one of their limited editions. They only prepared 1,000 quilts of this pattern. So this set, this quilt kit, is only for 1,000 people, so it is limited. And look at this. We've got all our fabric. So we're going to be doing blocks, and we're going to square up our blocks, and then we're going to do, it looks like, some lattice work between our pieces. Okay, this looks like a lot of fun. I like the colors. Oh, look at this. Okay, so here's your king and queen, and this is what we'll be working on, is the throw size right here. And we're going to be putting it on point. Oh, that's awesome. I love the look of an on-point quilt. So this is going to be fun. Now let's take a look at these fabrics. That's what I'm anxious to see. Let's take some of these big pieces out first. So we have our 4 yards of backing, so we're all set there. And these are going to be our large white center squares. If you look at the pattern here, where's that picture? Right here. You can see there's a white center, and it's surrounded by strips of floral fabric. And look at all the colors. Oh, okay. This is, maybe that is the binding. I'm not sure. It could also be some of the strips going through here. I'm not exactly sure how it goes together yet. Oh, and we have some of the small pieces. So we'll be doing some patchwork through here, but look at all those pretty colors. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun to work with. And look at this. These are going to be the pieces, I believe. Oh, there's an outer border. Awesome. Okay, so we'll have a border around the outside edge, and that's what these pieces are. So we have our gold, our white, and the purple, and we have all those right here. So everything is provided and prepared and cut and in ready to sew shape. And this is a beginner set. So there are a lot of different quilts available, different quilt kits that have the pre-cut fabric with the patterns. And it just makes it so easy to put together because it's a quick start. And you have everything you need. Everything is laid out, just ready to be sewn. And you've got a terrific pattern book that explains everything. Oh my goodness, this is going to be great fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and start putting some blocks together, and I'll come back and show you where we're going with this. It looks like a lot of fun. I want to thank the Fabric Hut for sponsoring this video. I love their quilts, and their kits are great fun to make. And this Morning Glory kit was special. It was a limited edition of only 1,000 kits available, and they're gone. They sold out. So I don't have a quilt to give you, but I have something really awesome that you're going to love. An Ergonomic Rotary Cutter. Oh my gosh, these are great. We loved switching from scissors over to rotary cutters. It made life so easy and cutting so fast. Now it can be super comfortable with this great hand hold on here. It's going to be so much easier to do cutting, especially if your hands get a little tired after you've worked a while on your fabric. These are so wonderful to have. And if you don't win the free pair, you can buy a pair on the Fabric Hut when you buy your half-priced rotary blades. They're 45mm and 60mm blades right now are on sale for half price. I'm going to put those links down below, and I want to show you. So your piece comes, or your set comes with 10 blades inside the little plastic case, which is awesome. And this is what I do. This is from my 45mm. I write on the front that it's used, so I know where to put my old blades. This way I can dispose of them safely and nobody gets hurt. And whoever finds them somewhere on the other end knows, use caution, and that's important. And now I'm ready to show you how to quilt this on-point method. Oh my gosh, you are just going to be amazed at how simple and easy and fast this can be. No special anything, just sew your blocks and we are going to make a quilt. Oh, I want to talk to you a bit about how on-point quilting works. Basically, we're taking rectangles and we're turning them so that in the quilt they appear that they're sitting on their points, and they look more like a diamond setting than a regular square going across your quilt. And this is a great example. This is in the pattern, and this is the layout that shows exactly how to put all the pieces together. So there are 3 different pieces that we're going to be using, and that's what I want to show you here. And this diagram is excellent, and it shows you exactly how to put everything together. And this is how we cut what's called our side setting triangles. So when we're putting our quilt together, we have rows of blocks. And if you look at it, it's just like sewing a regular quilt. We sew them in a square pattern, in that they're all lined up edge to edge. But it's when we turn them that we get the diagonal. And that turn comes from triangles. So we take our block, one of these blocks, cut it in half diagonally to get our triangles on each side all the way around. And that is going to allow us to get the diagonal look into our quilt. And then, of course, we have the 4 corners. And for this, we are just going to cut one of our blocks into 4. So we're going to do 2 diagonals. So the pattern is incredibly explicit and well laid out, so you can see just what you need to do. But I want to show it to you in fabric, because for me, when I see the hands-on piece, it just helps me to better understand what I'm doing. So we have our blocks. Now we have our block A and B. And so this is my first block, and then this is the second one here. So we have 2 different groups of blocks, 2 different color schemes. And the one set, we're going to take out 8 pieces and cut it diagonally. Well, excuse me, we're going to take out 8 pieces. 7 of them will cut diagonally. And then the 8th, we're going to cut diagonally twice. And that gives us this corner, and these are going to be the corner squares on the corner of our quilt. So if you see these pieces and understand where they come from and where they go, it helps the quilt assembly go a lot better, because it just makes more sense. So for my first row of my quilt, and again following the pattern, my first row is the corner, and then I have a center square. Notice I have an angle, a triangle on each side. So I know this block is going to be sewn like this. And what I'll do is I'll place this right on top. The reason this is considered a quick on-point quilt is because we take the same square that we used for this block in our quilt as we are going to use for our diagonals. Now, a lot of times in an on-point quilt, the squares will be made larger. The reason I'm telling you this is a quicker way to do it because we don't have to make blocks in a second size. It's not uncommon when you do an on-point quilt to make all your blocks, and then you have to come up with larger pieces that you then cross-cut and use to put into your quilt in order to fill in those gaps to create the on-point look. So this is the quick and easy version. If you've not done an on-point quilt before, you will really appreciate the ease of this particular method. And that's why I want to take the time to show you, because you're going to absolutely love how simple this is. So we're going to sew this, and we've got our corner. And that's the extent of row 1. Now, row 2, what we're going to do is take our piece that we cut in half. Now, this is the B block, and we cut it diagonally. We want to make sure when we're cutting this that our diagonal is from corner to corner, and we just cut it one time. This then becomes a bias seam. And you'll notice in the instructions, when you get to the end of your quilt and it's all assembled, there's a recommendation to sew a 1/8 inch seam along the entire quilt. And that is an incredibly good idea, because bias seams are cut not in line with the grain, it's on the angle, and that allows it to stretch. And I'm not going to stretch this because, well, I can do it inside one of the middle ones. Let's do this. If I were to take this, and you see how I can pull it from corner to corner, do you see how easily that stretches? If I go from end to end, it really doesn't go far at all. But when we're quilting and we have an outside edge that's cut on that bias, it can stretch on us. So by doing that 1/8 inch, that's going to secure your edges until you put the narrow lattice or border strips on. So I definitely recommend that. But the point I want to make is that this is what's going to go to the outside. And so we take a block like this when it's cut in half, and we put it this way. Now, you wonder, how is this going to become a quilt? It looks like we're making, a large flying geese or something. But notice what's happening is we're going to get to this corner, and it's going to turn. And by doing these diagonal rows, we are creating a quilt, and we're doing it at a 45-degree angle. I don't want to make this more complicated than it is, but I just want you to see how simply we're doing this nice diagonal seam, but we're sewing straight. There's absolutely no triangles that we have to sew, no corners that have to meet up in any particular way. This is a super simple method, and we're going to do it the same way we attach that. We're going to line this up, we're going to align our seams, and we're going to sew from end to end, and here from end to end. Now, I do want to show you, there we go, how we're going to get to our next block, to our next set of rows. And let's just move this up a bit. Now, when you're putting your blocks together, I chose to do both of my sets in the same manner, in the same color series. So I would put, all my yellow blocks per se are going to be in the same pattern. All the colors are on the same sides, just like this with the purple block. I had them all go the same way. If you want to go scrappy, you absolutely can. If you want to mix them up and just, create more of an eclectic kind of look, that would be fantastic. And that would work really good because you've got a good number of fabrics here that you can play around with. Now, the key thing you want to remember is when you have your A block, which in my case is the A, excuse me, of course it's the A. It's also yellow. So when I have my yellow block, I don't want to put a yellow block here. I want to put it here, and I want to put it here. And I did keep them going in the same direction. Again, I followed the pattern exactly, and this is the way it's laid out, but you can absolutely change this up. If you want to turn these around and go every which way, absolutely. It's a great fun way to make this quilt. And then we come in here, let's see, just like this. And actually, I think I had it going this way. Okay. And so I would sew these three together, 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to come back with my corners and watch what happens over here. So I'm going to put this block right here, the one I cut in half. We didn't quite get up high enough because I want to show you how this goes off the edge. But you see how we're getting this continuous diagonal line. But our rows are straight. We are sewing straight lines. So when we call it on point, all we're doing is adding triangles to the side that will turn our quilt 45 degrees. It'll turn our squares that quarter turn like this in the quilt and make them stand on point. And it's a wonderful way to change up your quilt and add so much interest. So you've seen here we have row 1, then we have row 2, which is 3 blocks, and then I've started on my row 3, or I guess it's actually 4 because that little tiny triangle here counts as 1 row, so that's an easy one. You can check that off pretty quickly. And so here are my next row is 5. So I have these 5, and I'm going to do the same thing. When I get here, I will add my corner, and then there we are. So what I want to do is show you my quilt partially assembled, and then you can get a full visual of what this looks like. So here's the top half of my quilt. Isn't that gorgeous? I love those florals mixed together. They just look fantastic. And so as you come down, you can see how that diagonal works with those triangles on the side. They make such an incredible difference. And it's just very simple. We have the corners on each side. You see those top corners, and then that's what helps to create that diagonal look. I love it. This is really a great way to step up your quilting. This is such a fun method. All right, so we've got that, and now let's go ahead and move on and do some more sewing. I'm ready to add the crowning corner here to finish off my quilt, and I just wanted to show you how this simple piece, single block, 2 corners, or I should say 2 side triangles, and then a corner at the top, may look like a flying geese, but it is now the corner of my on-point quilt. Just like this. And I'm going to sew that together, and my quilt is finished. This really is a fun quilt, and the quick and simple way of doing this on point makes it go that much easier, and you don't have to worry about those side triangles, which sometimes can be a challenge. This is great. You're going to love it, and it's a wonderful way to learn how to do an on-point quilt. With all my blocks assembled, I'm taking care of the rest of the piecing that needs to be done, and there are some narrow borders on the outer edge of the quilt, 3 of them. We have gold, white, and the lavender purple, and that's just going to enhance the colors, and it's sort of on an edge with triangles. This helps reinforce those edges, but it also finishes it off really nicely. And what I do on just narrow straight pieces like this, I do a straight seam. I put both ends, straight edge together, and then I do a 1/2 inch. I sew a 1/2 inch seam and press it open. This way you get a nice flat surface on the front of your quilt, and I really like the look of it. Now, when I do my binding, I do something a little different when I sew my strips together. I sew them on the bias, on the diagonal, so that I get a strip like this. And the reason is when I fold my bias and sew it to my quilt and then fold this over, there's a lot of fabric right here. And if I had sewn a seam like this, folded it and folded it again, that gets really thick. But by doing the diagonal, I can go like this and like this. And you see the seam starts over here, but it ends over here. So that heavy seam is distributed across the binding. And as I sew, it will be a little thicker, but not nearly like it would otherwise be. And it sews really smooth. So for doing this, let me find my ends. What you would do is take your first strip and put it in your machine like this. This is the way you're going to sew. And this is going laterally. It's going from side to side. Then you're going to take your next piece and put this right on top of it. Now, I always leave a little bit of overhang, like maybe not even 1/8 of an inch. And the reason I do that when I'm sewing is rather than draw a line from corner to corner, this way I can see it. So I will put my needle in right here at this corner. You see where those two come together? I want to make sure we get that right there. And then I'm going to sew all the way to the other side. And by leaving that little bit of fabric overhanging, I can find exactly where I need to end. And that way I know I'm going to get a nice straight stitch. Now, what's fun about this is when you make that stitch, you're going to, let me just do this, you're going to cut this piece off. So you do your sewing and you cut that triangle, and what are you going to do with that triangle? I don't like to let anything go to waste. What I do is, this is where I am. Ordinarily what I would do is come in and just cut a 1/4 inch from where I sewed. But what I do instead is I come back and I sew another seam. 1/2 inch from the first one that I made. So this is more to the outer piece. This is where I would be cutting off and either throwing away, discarding it, use it for scraps. But I go through my chain stitching and I sew that extra seam all the way along. And then look and see what we do. This, I think, is just a wonderful way to make half square triangles, because now look at this. It's ready to go. So I can just throw this in my scrap pile. Actually, I have a mini half square triangle basket at this point because I've been doing this for probably a little over a year, maybe 2 now. And when I'm ready and the basket can't hold any more, I'll pull these all out and I will make a scrappy quilt or a scrappy pincushion or a scrappy something. And this is just a fun way to use up your fabrics. And I thought, since we're doing the binding with multiple fabrics, it's a great opportunity to share this, because if it were the same fabric on both sides, it wouldn't be as much fun. But I would still cut them off and put them in my basket loose, and then I can add them to something else. So just something to think about. But now I do want to show you my quilt top. I don't have all the edging put on, but I do want to show you what it looks like at this point. It's so pretty. And here's this bright and colorful floral quilt. I think it came out so pretty. I love those colors all together. It's just a bright and cheery quilt. And you know, with those white centers, years ago, these kinds of quilts were made as a autograph quilt. Or if you wanted to have a party and have people sign their names, it's a lot of fun for something like that. Well, today, blank space, or what do we call negative space like that, is considered more to be a modern style. So I guess it depends on how you use it. But another fun idea is if you have young kids and do a handprint every year. I just think it's kind of fun to make quilts personal and memorable. And those are just some ideas that I really like. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you really enjoyed and are now ready to do an on-point quilt yourself. They are such a lot of fun, and they are beautiful. I'm so glad you were here with me today. I would love for you to share my video on your social media. I'm trying to get to that next level of subscribers, and I need to reach out to more people, and I would really appreciate your help. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. And as always, I appreciate you being here with me. Thank you.